I want to thank you for joining us in our podcast. We're studying through the book of Second Corinthians, and today we're in Second Corinthians, the 6th chapter, starting with verse number 13. Now, the Apostle Paul has been talking about servants of God, and he's been talking about their relationship with the people. But here in verse number 13, the Apostle Paul changes and he begins to talk about an exchange. You see, one of the things that we need to realize that in ministry is there needs to be an exchange between the servant of God and the people of God. Many times we see pastors and evangelists and apostles and prophets and teachers, and they burn out, and the reason why is they don't receive the exchange from the people that they're ministering to. So maybe we'll call this and entitle this podcast, The Exchange. But this is what Paul says, and again, 2 Corinthians, the 6th chapter, verse number 13, he says, now in a like exchange. Now, the word exchange here means a return or a reward. In the Greek language, it could be translated as a return or as a reward. It means a retribution given in a positive way. In other words, something that's given back to the servant of God. So the Apostle Paul says, now in like exchange, this verse means to have a reward for what they're doing. How many of you realize that just a simple thank you many times is reward enough? Just saying, Pastor, thank you for that message. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for helping me. It's reward enough for many of these servants of God. But the Apostle Paul, again, is talking about an exchange from him to the Corinthians and from the Corinthians back to him. And he says, now in a like exchange, I speak as to children. What's he talking about? Is he making an insult to the Corinthians? No. What he's doing is he's talking about his relationship with them. How many of you know that parents and children need to make an exchange between each other? Parents take care of their children, they speak nice to their children, but you know what? There needs to be something coming back from children to the parent. And so when Paul says, I'm speaking to you like as to children, he's saying, I am your father. I am the one who birthed you. By the way, in case you don't know, the Apostle Paul was the very first person to ever bring the gospel to the city of Corinth. And so Paul is saying, in a very endearing way, I'm talking to you like you're my children, like you're my kid. I need an exchange from you. And we're going to find out what happens later on this week. But Paul is saying, I need an exchange from you. And then he says, open wide to us also. What does he mean by open wide to us? He's talking about opening their hearts to him. He's talking about being in an open relationship. Their hearts are bound to him. His heart is already bound to them. We've already discovered that. We've seen that in this teaching here in the 6th chapter. But Paul is saying, now I need to have a return. I need you to open your heart to me. I need to have this relationship between each other. I need this relationship coming back from you. How many of you know a relationship that's one-sided is not a relationship? Now, stop, not because I forgot what I was going to say, but I want you to think about that. A relationship takes two sides, it takes two people. And this is what Paul is getting at when he says, open up to me. In other words, I need you to be open with me. I need this relationship to be open. And then he goes on into verse number 14. And he says this, do not be bound together with unbelievers. Now, I've preached this to youth many times. You know, don't associate, don't be bound together with unbelievers. But here the context is this. Paul is saying to the Corinthians, you know what, I need an open relationship with you. But the thing that's hurting that open relationship is that you are bound to unbelievers. Now, the word bound here means, it's a strong word, and it means to be ensnared or to be yoked together with an unbeliever. Now, the Apostle Paul is talking about the relationship between a servant of God and the people. And one of the things that hinders the relationship between a servant of God and the people is when the people are yoked together with unbelievers. The Apostle Paul has had tremendous problems in the city of Corinth with Judaizers, with unbelievers, with immoral people coming into the church, with people that were saying, you know, don't listen to Paul, he doesn't know what he's talking about, all kinds of problems that Paul was having. And here he comes right to the heart of it, and he says, really the problem in our relationship is you're yoked together with unbelievers. And then he goes on and says, what partnership have righteous with lawlessness? What partnership? How can you be a partner with being a righteous person? How can you be a partner with lawlessness? And so the Apostle Paul here, and he's talking and he's saying, you know, please understand, this is our problem. You have been in partnership as a righteous person with a person that is lawless. And the word partnership means to be in close precipitation with a lawless person, with a person that knows no law, that constantly violates the law. And here we understand it's the law of God. And then the Apostle Paul goes on and he says, and what fellowship has light with darkness? He's talking about fellowship. Greek word is koinonia, and it means to have a spiritual and emotional bond together. What fellowship has light with darkness? How many of you know you turn the lights on, darkness leaves? You turn the lights off, darkness comes in. There is no fellowship. They do not get along. And this is what Paul is talking about. And he's stressing to the Corinthian people, please, I want to have a relationship with you. I want you to open your hearts to me. But you cannot walk in fellowship with darkness. You can't be a participant in as a person of righteousness in lawlessness. You cannot be bound together with an unbeliever. Now, we're going to pick up here tomorrow as we continue our study in the book of 2 Corinthians.